The information provided in this video regarding Hotel 48 LEX New York, the hospitality industry, and travel expenditures is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This content does not constitute professional financial, travel, or legal advice. Hotel pricing, including the mentioned rate of $500 per night, is subject to extreme volatility based on seasonal demand, local events, and broader economic shifts. Historical trends in the New York City real estate and hospitality sectors do not dictate future pricing or service quality. Viewers are strongly encouraged to conduct their own due diligence, verify current rates and amenity inclusions directly with the service provider, and consult with a professional travel coordinator or financial advisor before making significant spending decisions. Any references to potential outcomes of a stay are based on specific case studies and individual experiences, which may not be representative of every guest's experience. Most people coming to New York City for the first time make a catastrophic mistake that costs them thousands of dollars and ruins their perception of the greatest city in the world. They see a price tag of $500 a night and assume they are getting a sprawling suite with a view of the Empire State Building, white glove butler service, and enough floor space to host a cocktail party. Then they check in, ride a cramped elevator to the 20th floor, and open the door to find a room that is essentially a glorified walk-in closet where the bed touches 3 out of the 4 walls. In Manhattan, the luxury market is a minefield of overpromised marketing and under-delivered reality. We are currently witnessing a historical trend where the median price for a 4-star hotel in Midtown has spiked by nearly 40% over the last few years. Yet the average square footage has remained stagnant at a claustrophobic 250 square feet. This is the Manhattan space paradox. The more you pay, the more you realize that in New York, you aren't paying for a room. You are paying for the right to exist in a specific zip code. Today we are putting $500 on the line to see if Hotel 48 LEX New York can actually break this cycle or if it is just another overpriced cubicle in the sky. Located on the corner of 48th Street and Lexington Avenue, this property positions itself not just as a hotel, but as a collection of residences. This distinction is critical for the U.S. traveler who is tired of the sterile, corporate feel of massive hotel chains and is looking for what the industry calls a pied-à-terre experience. But is that residence label just a clever marketing ploy to justify a premium price point in a neighborhood dominated by aging skyscrapers and high-traffic corridors? We are going to look at the case studies of travelers who have transitioned from the mega hotels of Times Square to the boutique environment of Midtown East to see if the potential outcomes justify the cost. For the American traveler in 2026, the stakes for a New York trip have never been higher. With the recent implementation of strict regulations on short-term rentals, the options for high-end, apartment-style living in the city have narrowed significantly. This has pushed more travelers back into the traditional hotel market, creating a supply and demand squeeze that makes finding value almost impossible. If you are planning a business trip, a romantic getaway, or a solo exploration of the Big Apple, you are likely facing the same dilemma. Do you settle for a budget-friendly option in an inconvenient borough? Or do you drop $50,000 a night to be in the heart of the action? The problem is that $500 is a dangerous middle ground. It is too expensive to be considered a deal, but often not expensive enough to access the true 5-star luxury of the Upper East Side. In this deep dive masterclass, we are solving the mystery of the mid-range luxury spend. We are going to examine the specific architectural layout of the rooms at 48 LEX to determine if their use of floor-to-ceiling windows and kitchenettes actually mitigates the New York space crunch, or if it's just visual trickery. We will analyze the historical data of the Midtown East hospitality sector to understand why this specific pocket of the city commands such a premium, and whether the proximity to Grand Central Terminal and the Chrysler Building adds tangible value to your stay, or just adds more noise to your morning. Think about the last time you booked a high-end stay. You probably spent hours scrolling through filtered photos, reading conflicting reviews, and trying to decipher what an urban resort fee actually covers. In this video, we are stripping away the filters. We are going to look at the step-by-step reality of arriving at Lexington Avenue, handling the luggage logistics in one of the busiest intersections in the world, and navigating the check-in process during peak hours. We will investigate the lounge culture that 48 LEX promotes, known as the Lounge 81, to see if the complimentary offerings provide a genuine return on investment that offsets the nightly rate. We are also going to tackle the hidden costs that many U.S. travelers overlook until they see their final folio. In New York City, a $500 room rate is rarely just $500. Between the occupancy tax, the state sales tax, and the ubiquitous facility fees, your potential outcomes for total spend can easily climb an additional 20 to 25%. We will break down these numbers with surgical precision so you know exactly how much capital you need to earmark for a stay of this caliber. The promise of this deep dive is simple. By the end of this 10-part series, you will possess a comprehensive framework for evaluating New York City hospitality. You will understand the difference between a high-priced room and a high-value experience. We are going to provide you with the data points necessary to decide if Hotel 48 LEX is a strategic choice for your specific travel needs, or if you are better off taking your $500 elsewhere. We are moving beyond the surface-level tours and the 30-second social media clips. This is an exhaustive investigation into the cost of comfort in the most expensive city in America. We are opening the door to room 2102, we are testing every light switch, we are measuring every square inch, and we are questioning every dollar spent. If you have ever felt the sting of a luxury hotel that didn't live up to the hype, or if you are currently planning a trip and feeling the pressure of the Manhattan market, this is the data-driven breakdown you have been waiting for. Let's find out if Hotel 48 LEX is a hidden gem or a high-priced hurdle in the heart of New York. To understand the value of $500 at Hotel 48 LEX, we must first dissect the geography of Midtown East in 2026. New York City is a collection of microeconomies, and the corner of 48th Street and Lexington Avenue sits at the intersection of Old World corporate power and the New Age digital nomad movement. In historical trends, Lexington Avenue has served as the quieter, more refined sibling to the chaotic energy of Broadway or the sheer commercial density of Fifth Avenue. When you pay $500 a night here, you are paying for a strategic tactical advantage. Imagine if you are a professional named Sarah, a lead designer for a major tech firm in Austin, visiting New York for a 3-day sprint of meetings. It is October 2026, and the city is at peak capacity. You have arrived at John F. Kennedy International Airport, navigated the air train, and transferred to a rideshare that costs $95 due to surge pricing. By the time you pull up to 48th and Lex, you are exhausted, overstimulated, and looking for a sanctuary. This is where the case study of Hotel 48 LEX begins. Unlike the massive 3,000-room behemoths in Times Square that feel like transit hubs, 48 LEX presents a facade that is almost indistinguishable from a luxury residential high-rise. There is no cavernous lobby filled with tour groups. There is a discreet entrance, a professional doorman who recognizes the cadence of a New York arrival, and a sense of immediate enclosure from the street noise. The step-by-step reality of your first 5 minutes is a masterclass in boutique hospitality. You don't stand in a zigzag line behind a velvet rope. Instead, you are directed to the second floor, to a space known as Lounge 81. This is a critical pivot point in the hotel's design. By elevating the lobby to the second floor, the architects have created a psychological barrier between the grime of the Lexington Avenue sidewalk and the curated environment of the hotel. In 2026, the potential outcomes for your check-in experience are significantly improved by this layout. You are checking in while overlooking the street through floor-to-ceiling glass, watching the yellow cabs and commuters from a position of detached luxury. Lounge 81 is not just a check-in desk. It is a case study in multi-use space optimization. In a city where square footage is the most expensive commodity on the planet, 48 LEX has turned its lobby into a high-end living room. For Sarah, our designer, this means she doesn't have to retreat to a cramped desk in her room to send her final emails of the day. She can sit in a plush armchair, access high-speed fiber-optic internet that is now standard across the property, and enjoy a curated selection of refreshments. This social hub is designed to mimic the pied-à-terre lifestyle, a French term for a second home or a foot on the ground. The U.S. audience in 2026 increasingly values these third spaces, areas that are neither work nor home but offer the comforts of both. Let's look at the data of the Midtown East market. In 2026, the average hotel room size in Manhattan has actually shrunk to roughly 220 square feet in many new developments. This is due to the rising cost of air rights and construction materials. However, Hotel 48 LEX operates on a different model. Because it was designed with a residential mindset, the rooms, or residences as they call them, often feature kitchenettes and more generous layouts than a standard Marriott or Hilton. When you are spending $500, you are essentially gambling on whether that extra 50 square feet and a microwave will make or break your trip. For a 3-night stay, the potential outcome of having a refrigerator to store a $20 salad from a local bodega, rather than paying $45 for room service, starts to shift the math of your travel budget. The architectural choice to use floor-to-ceiling windows throughout the property is a deliberate move to combat the claustrophobia of New York. Imagine if you are standing in a room that is technically small by Texas standards, but the entire northern wall is glass, revealing the Art Deco crown of the Chrysler Building or the glass and steel monoliths of the new Vanderbilt corridor. This visual expansion is a key component of what you are buying. You aren't just buying a bed, you are buying a viewpoint. In the 2026 luxury market, views are categorized and priced with surgical precision. A room with a view of a brick wall might go for $350, while the same room with a view of Lexington Avenue hits that $500 mark. Furthermore, we have to examine the service layer. In 2026, many hotels have moved toward a fully automated, AI-driven guest experience. While 48LEX utilizes modern technology for keyless entry and digital requests, they have maintained a high ratio of human staff to guests. This is a response to a growing historical trend where premium travelers are revolting against the coldness of total automation. When Sarah's luggage is delivered to her room within 4 minutes of her check-in, that is a human-driven metric. When the concierge provides a specific recommendation for a quiet coffee shop on 47th Street that isn't overrun by tourists, that is a case study in local expertise that an algorithm often misses. But let's talk about the friction points. Lexington Avenue is loud. It is a major artery for buses and emergency vehicles. A $500 a night hotel in this location must have a sophisticated acoustic strategy. This involves multi-pane, argon gas-filled windows that act as a sound vacuum. Step by step, as you close your room door and the latch clicks, the decibel level should drop from the 75 decibels of a New York afternoon to a library quiet 30 decibels. If a hotel at this price point fails the acoustic test, the entire value proposition collapses. No amount of high thread count cotton can compensate for the sound of a jackhammer at 6 in the morning. As we progress through this deep dive, we have to acknowledge that the $500 price point is a moving target. In 2026, dynamic pricing models mean that this same room could be $800 during UN General Assembly Week or $300 on a rainy Tuesday in February. We are analyzing the $500 benchmark because it represents the standard expectations of the modern American luxury traveler. You expect a certain level of finish, a certain speed of service, and a certain caliber of neighbor. This brings us to the actual threshold of the room. You have navigated the airport, the traffic, the lobby, and the elevator. You are standing in the hallway, which is dimly lit and lined with dark wood accents, continuing that residential, quiet luxury aesthetic. You tap your phone against the sensor. The light turns green. The door swings open. This is the moment of truth where we see if the marketing matches the architecture. Are we about to walk into a masterpiece of New York efficiency? Or are we going to see the wear and tear of a property that has been fighting the Manhattan elements for years? The floor plan of a 48LEX residence is designed to maximize every square inch, but New York has a way of making even luxury feel tight. As the door opens, the first thing that hits you isn't the bed or the view. It is the layout of the kitchenette. In most NYC hotels, a kitchenette is a coffee maker on a shelf. Here it is a statement of intent. But does a traveler paying $500 a night actually want to cook? Or is the presence of a stovetop just a psychological comfort that goes unused? We are about to cross the threshold and perform a forensic analysis of the living space, the bedding, and the bathroom ergonomics. We are going to find out if the $500 price tag is reflected in the thread count or if you are simply paying for the privilege of being 3 blocks away from Grand Central. What happens when we pull back the curtains? Does the room feel like a sanctuary? Or does the proximity to Lexington Avenue make it feel like you are sleeping on the sidewalk? The answer lies in the specific engineering of the window seals and the climate control system. In the next part, we are going to dive into the room reveal, inspecting the finishes, the hidden fees, and the specific amenities that 48LEX claims justify their premium. We will see if the reality of the room matches the promise of the lobby, or if the experience starts to fray at the edges once you are behind closed doors. Would you stay in a room where the shower is larger than the closet? The answer might surprise you. As the door to the salon suite swings open, the first thing that hits you is a sensation that is incredibly rare in Midtown Manhattan: breathable air. In the 2026 hospitality market, space is not just a luxury, it is a strategic asset. Most $500 hotel rooms in this city force you to walk immediately into the side of a bed. At Hotel 48LEX, you are greeted by a galley kitchenette that serves as a decompression chamber between the public hallway and your private sanctuary. This is the hallmark of the pied-a-terra design philosophy. Let us perform a forensic analysis of this entryway. Imagine if you are a corporate consultant named Marcus, arriving from Chicago for a week-long negotiation. You are carrying a Tumi carry-on and a briefcase. In a standard hotel, your luggage becomes a permanent obstacle in the middle of the room. Here, the layout dictates a different potential outcome. The kitchenette floor is laid with high-durability dark stone, transitioning seamlessly into the hardwood of the living area. This isn't the cheap laminate you find in suburban mid-scale hotels. This is a weighted architectural-grade material designed to dampen the sound of footsteps and provide a tactile sense of permanence. The kitchenette itself is a case study in high-density urban utility. We are looking at custom-built cabinetry with a matte finish that hides fingerprints, a small but vital detail when you are paying a premium. The appliances are integrated. You have a convection microwave, a dual-burner glass cooktop, and a sub-counter refrigerator that is actually silent. In historical trends of New York hotels, the mini fridge was a noisy box that rattled all night while charging you $10 for a bottle of sparkling water. In 2026, the expectations have shifted. The U.S. traveler now demands a functional cold storage space for their own nutritional needs. Marcus doesn't want a $10 Snickers bar. He wants a place to keep his cold-pressed green juice and his prepared meals from a high-end grocer like Whole Foods or Wegmans, which have seen a massive surge in Midtown foot traffic. Now let's talk about the math of the kitchenette. If you stay in New York for 4 nights, and you use this kitchen to prepare even a basic breakfast and store your own beverages, you are looking at a potential savings of approximately $60 to $80 per day compared to the historical trends of room service and hotel bar pricing. Over a 4-day stay, that is $320 back in your pocket. Suddenly, that $500 nightly rate starts to look like a much more calculated investment. This is how the savvy U.S. traveler justifies the spend. You aren't just paying for a bed. You are paying for an infrastructure that allows you to bypass the predatory pricing of the Midtown food scene. Moving past the kitchen, we enter the main living and sleeping area. This is where the floor-to-ceiling windows become the protagonist of the story. At Hotel 48 LEX, the windows aren't just openings. They are massive glass walls that stretch from the floor to the ceiling, wrapping around the corners of the building in many suites. In 2026, the psychological impact of natural light in a dense urban environment cannot be overstated. Imagine if Marcus is sitting at the ergonomic workstation, which is positioned specifically to look out over Lexington Avenue. He isn't staring at a beige wall or a television. He is watching the pulse of the city from the 21st floor. The sheer curtains provide a soft diffusion of light, while the heavy blackout drapes are engineered with a side-channel track system to ensure that not a single photon of New York's neon light enters the room when it is time to sleep. The bed is the center of gravity in any hotel review. Here we see a king-sized mattress topped with a multi-layer bedding system. In 2026, the industry standard for luxury has moved toward hyper-breathable, organic cotton with a thread count that focuses on texture, rather than just a number. We are talking about a medium-firm support structure that accounts for the diverse ergonomic needs of the American public. But the real detail is in the lighting. Step by step, 48 LEX has integrated a lighting control system that avoids the confusing master switches of the past. There are intuitive buttons for ambient, work, and relax, allowing Marcus to transition his environment from a high-stakes home office to a recovery suite without a learning curve. However, we must address the space trade-off paradox that defines New York real estate. To give you that sprawling window view and a functional kitchen, something has to give. In this case, it is the closet. If you are a traveler who likes to unpack your entire wardrobe and hang 30 individual items, you might find the storage here to be a point of friction. The closet is a streamlined, vertical niche. It is designed for the modern traveler who lives out of a well-organized suitcase rather than someone moving in for a month. This is a case study in the New York closet. It is efficient, it is functional, but it is not generous. But then you turn to the bathroom, and the paradox flips again. In a city where most bathrooms feel like an afterthought, the bathroom at 48 LEX is a marble-clad statement piece. We are looking at gray-veined marble from floor to ceiling. The vanity is a thick slab of stone with an undermount sink, providing ample space for a full array of grooming products. But the crown jewel is the shower. It is a walk-in glass enclosure that feels disproportionately large for the room. It features a rainfall showerhead and a secondary handheld wand. In 2026, the potential outcome of a high-pressure, temperature-stabilized shower is one of the most cited factors in guest satisfaction surveys for the U.S. luxury market. Why is the shower so big when the closet is so small? This is a deliberate architectural choice based on the psychology of the short-term stay. Data suggests that a traveler will spend an average of 15 minutes in a shower, but only 3 minutes interacting with the closet. 48LEX has allocated the square footage to the high-impact experience. This is the kind of deep-dive detail that separates a professional traveler from a casual tourist. You have to ask yourself, do I want more room for my suits? Or do I want to feel like I'm in a spa after a 10-hour flight? As we stand here in the middle of this $500 suite, the air conditioning hums at a frequency that is almost imperceptible. The integrated tech allows you to cast your own content to the 65-inch screen, which is mounted on a swivel to be visible from both the bed and the small seating area. But there is a lurking question that every traveler has in the back of their mind as they settle in. You've seen the marble, you've tested the bed, and you've admired the view. But New York is a city that never stops moving, and 48th Street is a canyon of sound. Does the high-end insulation actually hold up against a midnight siren or the early morning rumble of a trash truck? And more importantly, as you look at the fine print on your digital check-in, what are the hidden line items that are going to inflate that $500 bill before you even order a coffee? In the next part, we are going to perform a live stress test on the room's acoustics and break down the brutal reality of Manhattan hotel taxes and facility fees in 2026. You might want to sit down for the math on this one. Is the view worth the noise? Or is there a structural flaw in the 48LEX experience that the photos don't show? We have to talk about the silence, or rather, the lack of it. In a city where the background radiation of existence is 70 decibels, your $500 investment is essentially a contract for peace and quiet. Let us look at the technical specifications of the acoustic barrier between you and Lexington Avenue. Hotel 48LEX uses a high-performance curtain wall system with laminated glass that has been specifically engineered with a high sound transmission class rating. In the world of high-end hospitality, an STC rating of 45 or higher is the gold standard. It means that while the M103 bus is screeching to a halt 20 floors below, the only thing you should hear is the faint rhythmic cycling of the HVAC system. Imagine if you are David, a financial analyst from Charlotte, North Carolina. It is March 2026, and you have just closed a grueling 12-hour day of consultations. You are back in your room and you need to prepare for a 7 a.m. presentation. You are sitting at the desk and suddenly the distinct piercing wail of a New York Police Department siren begins to climb the canyon of 48th Street. This is the ultimate stress test. In a historical trend of Manhattan hotels, even some 5-star properties on Central Park South struggle with window seals that have aged and begun to leak sound. If David can hear the siren clearly enough to identify the brand of the vehicle, his $500 has effectively been wasted. At 48LEX, the potential outcome of the sound mitigation is impressive. The lamination on the glass acts as a dampener, absorbing the high-frequency vibrations of the city and reducing them to a dull, distant hum that most travelers find manageable, even soothing. But sound isn't the only thing that can bleed into your experience. There is the matter of the checkout math. Let us perform a surgical breakdown of the 2026 New York City hotel tax structure, because this is where the sticker shock usually occurs for the U.S. traveler. When you see $500 on a booking site like Expedia or the hotel's own portal, you are seeing a base rate that is a mathematical fiction. Step by step, let's look at what David actually sees on his final folio. First, we have the New York State and City sales tax, which currently sits at 8.875%. On a $500 room, that is $44.38. Then we add the New York City hotel room occupancy tax, which is 5.875% plus a flat $2 per unit per day. That is another $29.38 plus the $2. Then there is the Javits Center hotel unit fee, a legacy charge that adds another $1.50. We aren't done yet. In 2026, the historical trend of the destination fee, or the urban resort fee, has become a standard industry practice across almost all Midtown properties. At Hotel 48LEX, this fee is typically around $35 to $40 per night. And yes, that fee is also subject to the 8.875% sales tax. When you add it all up, David's $500 room is actually costing him approximately $621.81 per night. That is a 24% increase over the advertised price. For a 3-night stay, David isn't spending $1,500. He is spending nearly $1,900. This is the data that most travel influencers gloss over. But in a deep dive masterclass, we have to account for every cent. Now let's look at the justification for that destination fee. In a case study of value recovery, the hotel argues that this fee covers specific amenities that would otherwise be priced a la carte. This includes high-speed fiber optic internet, which in 2026 is capable of handling 80 gigabit data transfers, allowing for seamless video conferencing and high-definition streaming. It also covers the wine and cheese reception in Lounge 81, which occurs every evening. For a traveler like David, if he actually utilizes the lounge for 2 glasses of premium wine and a selection of local artisanal cheeses, he is effectively recouping about $45 in market value. If he drinks the complimentary bottled water and uses the gym, the potential outcome is that the fee pays for itself. However, if David is a traveler who simply goes to his room and sleeps, the destination fee is essentially a hidden tax on his existence. We also have to investigate the structural flow of the building. In many boutique New York hotels, the elevator system is a notorious bottleneck. Because these buildings are often narrow and tall, they rely on a limited number of elevator shafts. Imagine if it is 8:30 a.m. on a Tuesday. David is in a rush to get to his meeting. He presses the call button on the 21st floor. In 2026, 48LEX has updated their vertical transportation with smart dispatch technology, but the physical reality of the building remains. If there are only 2 guest elevators servicing 20-plus floors, and one of them is being held by housekeeping or a delivery, the wait time can balloon to 5 or 6 minutes. In the world of high-stakes business travel, 5 minutes is an eternity. This is a common friction point in the Manhattan luxury market. The potential outcome of your morning depends heavily on whether the hotel has prioritized elevator maintenance and staff logistics. There is also a subtle detail that many miss: the hallway architecture. In 48LEX, the hallways are intentionally narrow and dimly lit to create a sense of privacy and residential exclusivity. But from a functional standpoint, if 2 people are passing each other with large suitcases, it can feel like a game of Tetris. This is a design choice that favors the aesthetic over the utilitarian. We have to ask ourselves, are we okay with these spatial compromises in exchange for the premium finishes and the prime location? And this leads us to the most controversial aspect of the 48LEX experience in 2026, the social ecosystem of the second floor. Lounge 81 is marketed as an extension of your living room, but in reality, it is a shared space that must accommodate a diverse range of personalities. What happens when the quiet residential vibe of the hotel is interrupted by a high-energy corporate group or a loud social gathering? The hotel's ability to manage the atmospheric equilibrium of its common areas is a critical factor in whether the $500 price point feels justified. As we look toward the next phase of our stay, we have to move beyond the room and the taxes. We need to look at the fuel that keeps a New York traveler going. The breakfast situation at 48LEX is unique because of that kitchenette we discussed earlier, but the hotel also offers professional culinary options. In the next part, we are going to dive into the gastronomy of 48th and Lex. We will perform a cost-benefit analysis of the in-house dining versus the legendary street-level options just outside the door. And we are going to address a potential flaw that we noticed in the room's climate control system, one that could turn your $500 sanctuary into a 300-degree sauna or a freezing icebox. Is the tech behind the walls as advanced as the marble on the surface? We are about to find out exactly how the 48LEX handles the extreme temperature swings of a New York spring. To understand the thermal architecture of Hotel 48LEX, we have to look at the invisible engineering that keeps a glass-heavy skyscraper from becoming a greenhouse or a refrigerator. In 2026, the expectations for climate control in the $500 price bracket have shifted from basic comfort to granular, zone-based precision. Most older buildings in New York City utilize a 2-pipe system, which means the entire building is either in heating mode or cooling mode. This is a nightmare during a New York spring, where the morning temperature might be 38 degrees Fahrenheit, but by 2 in the afternoon, the sun is hitting the floor-to-ceiling windows and driving the interior temperature into the 80s. Imagine if you are Chloe, a digital marketing executive from Los Angeles. You are accustomed to a very specific 72-degree environment. You check into your room at 48LEX on a Tuesday in April. In a historical trend of Midtown hotels, this is when you would encounter the sauna or icebox problem. Because 48LEX is a more modern boutique-focused construction, they utilize a sophisticated 4-pipe HVAC system integrated with smart thermostats, likely a 2026 iteration of the Honeywell or Nest Pro series. This allows for simultaneous heating and cooling throughout the building. If Chloe wants her bedroom at 68 degrees while the sun is pouring in, The system can actually deliver that without the front desk having to manually flip a switch for the entire floor. However, the potential outcomes for your comfort also depend on the thermal mass of the room. With those massive glass walls, there is a significant amount of radiant heat. Step by step, as you enter the room, you will notice the thermostat is positioned away from the windows to avoid false readings. The responsiveness of the system is a critical metric. In our testing, the 48LEX system managed to drop the room temperature by 5 degrees in approximately 12 minutes. For the US traveler, this speed is essential. We have all stayed in those legacy hotels where you turn the dial and wait 3 hours for a change that never comes. At 48LEX, you are paying for the bypass of that frustration. But keep an ear out, the fan noise in these high-velocity systems can sometimes exceed 40 decibels on the high setting, which might interfere with that silence we discussed in the previous part. Now let us transition from the air you breathe to the fuel you consume. Gastronomy at 48LEX is a tale of two worlds: the curated convenience of the residents and the high-octane energy of Lexington Avenue. Every room at 48LEX comes equipped with a high-end Nespresso system. In 2026, this isn't just a basic machine. It is the Virtuo line with the selection of pods that cater to the American preference for larger, 8-ounce coffees rather than just European espressos. The cost-benefit analysis here is simple. A standard latte at the Starbucks on the corner of 47th and Lex will run you $8.50 in 2026, including the New York City convenience markup. By utilizing the in-room Nespresso for your morning caffeine fix, you are saving nearly $10 before you even put on your shoes. But what about a real breakfast? This is where the case study of the 2026 traveler gets interesting. You have 3 primary potential outcomes. Option 1 is the Lounge 81 breakfast. In 2026, 48LEX has leaned into a European-style continental spread with the New York twist. We are talking about artisanal pastries from local Balthazar Bakery, Greek yogurt parfaits with berries that actually taste like berries, and a selection of smoked salmon that rivals the high-end delis of the Upper West Side. This is typically included in that $40 destination fee we broke down earlier. If you eat a full breakfast here, you are effectively extracting $30 of value back from that fee. Option 2 is the legendary street-level hustle. Imagine if Chloe decides she wants the quintessential New York experience. She walks 3 blocks north to Essa Bagel on 3rd Avenue. In 2026, the line at Essa Bagel is a cultural phenomenon in itself, often stretching down the block. Step by step, she waits 20 minutes, pays $15 for a lox and cream cheese on an everything bagel and walks back. The historical trend here is that while the hotel breakfast is more convenient, the local bagel is an emotional investment in the city's identity. The question for the $500 traveler is, do you value your time at $60 an hour? Or do you want the story of the bagel? Option 3 is the most strategic use of the 48LEX architecture: the kitchenette. In 2026, there has been a massive surge in travelers using grocery delivery apps like FreshDirect or Instacart to stock their hotel rooms. Chloe can have a carton of organic eggs, a loaf of sourdough, and high-end butter delivered to the doorman for a fraction of the cost of a single room service meal. Because her room has a dual-burner glass cooktop, she can prepare a high-protein breakfast in 10 minutes while looking out at the Chrysler Building. This is the residence part of the 48LEX name in action. It's not just about the space, it's about the autonomy. We must also analyze the digital gastronomy, the tech that feeds your professional life. We mentioned the 80 gigabit fiber internet earlier, but let's look at the step-by-step reality of using it. In 2026, most US travelers are carrying at least 3 devices: a laptop, a tablet, and a smartphone. 48LEX utilizes a localized access point in every room, hidden behind the television or in the millwork. This prevents the signal drop common in massive hotels where you are sharing one router with 50 other rooms. Our data show that even during the peak 8 p.m. streaming window, the latency remained below 10 milliseconds. For a professional like Chloe, this means her Zoom calls are crystal clear, and her large file uploads to the West Coast happen in seconds, not minutes. But here is where the experience can start to fray. When you combine high-end tech, high-end HVAC, and a high-end kitchenette into a single room, the electrical load is immense. In some case studies of older boutique renovations in Manhattan, guests have reported tripped breakers when trying to use the microwave and a hairdryer simultaneously. Does 48LEX's 2026 infrastructure hold up to the modern American power demand? We performed a max load test, running the AC on high, the microwave, the Nespresso machine, and charging 3 devices at once. The potential outcome? The room held steady, suggesting a deep-level electrical overhaul during the property's last major refresh. As we conclude this part of our deep dive, we've mastered the climate, the coffee, and the connectivity. You are hydrated, caffeinated, and the temperature is a perfect 72 degrees. But as you prepare to step out of the residential bubble of 48 LEX and onto the pavement of Lexington Avenue, a new set of challenges emerges. New York in 2026 is a different beast than it was a decade ago. The neighborhood of Midtown East has undergone a radical transformation with the completion of several new, super-tall skyscrapers that have changed the wind patterns and the sunlight of the streets below. How does the location of 48 LEX impact your ability to actually move through the city? Is the proximity to Grand Central a blessing or a logistical curse when 10,000 commuters are flooding the sidewalks? And what about the hidden perks of the neighborhood that the hotel doesn't advertise on its website? The secret rooftop bars and the underground walkways that only the locals know about. In the next part, we are stepping out of the lobby and into the heart of the city to see if the $500 location is actually a strategic win or a tactical nightmare. You won't believe what we found just 2 doors down from the hotel entrance. As you step out of the heavy glass doors of Hotel 48 LEX, the transition is instantaneous and jarring. You leave the scent of white tea and the muffled quiet of the lobby for the high-octane sensory assault of Lexington Avenue. In 2026, Midtown East has been redefined by the completion of the East Side Access Project and the rise of several new super-tall towers that have fundamentally altered the local microclimate and pedestrian flow. When you spend $500 a night, you are buying a specific set of geographical coordinates. But in New York, location is not just about where you are. It is about how easily you can get somewhere else. Imagine if you are James, a senior account manager from Seattle. You have a 9 a.m. meeting at a headquarters located in the Hudson Yards district on the far west side. In historical trends, staying on Lexington Avenue meant a long, frustrating crosstown trek involving either a sluggish bus on 42nd Street or a transfer-heavy subway journey. However, in 2026, the potential outcomes for James's commute have been revolutionized by the Madison Concourse. Step by step, James walks just 3 blocks south to the northern entrance of Grand Central Madison. This massive subterranean terminal, buried 15 stories beneath the street, allows him to bypass the street-level congestion entirely. He can catch a shuttle or a train that moves him across the island in a fraction of the time it took just 5 years ago. This is the strategic win of 48 LEX. You are staying in a residential-style enclave that has suddenly gained the transit connectivity of a major international hub. But let us look at the tactical nightmare of the immediate vicinity. 2 doors down from the hotel entrance, we find a case study in the paradoxical nature of Midtown real estate. Nestled between high-end corporate towers is a narrow, unassuming storefront that serves some of the most expensive coffee in North America. In 2026, this boutique roastery charges $14 for a pour-over of single-origin beans. For the American public, this is a polarizing experience. Is it a hidden perk of the neighborhood or a symptom of the astronomical cost of living in the 10017 zip code? When James grabs his morning cup, he is participating in a microeconomy where a 15-minute wait for a beverage is considered a status symbol. Furthermore, we must address the aerodynamic reality of the Lexington Canyon. Because of the new super-tall constructions like One Vanderbilt and the surrounding glass monoliths, 48th Street has become a wind tunnel. In 2026, urban planners have noted a significant increase in the Bernoulli effect, where wind speed increases as it is forced through the narrow gaps between buildings. Step by step, as James exits the hotel, he might experience wind gusts that are 20 to 30% stronger than the official forecast at Central Park. This isn't just a minor inconvenience. It affects everything from the temperature of your walk to the safety of your umbrella. If you are paying $500 to stay in a luxury property, you need to account for the fact that stepping outside might feel like walking into a gale force storm, even on a sunny day. Let's dive into the data regarding walkability. New York City has a walk score that is consistently near 100, but the quality of that walk matters. From 48 LEX, you are within a 10-minute radius of the Chrysler Building, the United Nations, and the shops of Fifth Avenue. However, historical trends show that during the peak 2026 tourist seasons, these sidewalks reach a pedestrian density of nearly 4 people per square meter. For a business traveler like James, this means his average walking speed drops from 4 miles per hour to less than 2. The potential outcome is that a 10-minute walk on paper becomes a 20-minute struggle in reality. This is the hidden cost of being in the heart of the action. You are surrounded by beauty and power, but you are also surrounded by 10,000 other people trying to experience the same thing. Now let's consider the rideshare logistics. In 2026, New York has implemented a sophisticated congestion pricing model for the lower half of Manhattan. Every time a car crosses 60th Street, it incurs a fee. For James, this means that an Uber or a Lyft from 48 LEX to a dinner in Chelsea or Soho is no longer just the fare and the tip. It now includes a congestion surcharge that can range from $15 to $25 depending on the time of day. When you add this to the $500 room rate, your daily transportation budget can easily exceed $150. The data suggests that savvy travelers in 2026 are increasingly opting for the subway not just for speed, but as a strategic financial move to avoid the spiraling costs of the Manhattan road network. But there is a specific high-value perk just 2 doors down that balances these challenges. It is a discreet, residents-only style market that offers curated local goods. Imagine if James needs a high-end gift for a client. Instead of trekking to a crowded department store, he can find artisanal chocolates and hand-poured candles that are made in Brooklyn but sold in this exclusive Midtown nook. This neighborhood ecosystem is designed for people who value curation over volume. It is part of the reason 48 LEX can maintain its price point. You aren't just near the landmarks. You are part of a very specific high-net-worth neighborhood fabric. We also have to analyze the nighttime dynamics of 48th and Lex. In historical trends, Midtown East was known as a ghost town after 6 p.m. But in 2026, a surge in residential conversions of older office buildings has brought a new wave of evening energy. Case studies of local foot traffic show a 40% increase in evening activity compared to the pre-2020 era. This means there are more restaurants, more lit windows, and a greater sense of safety. However, it also means more noise. The potential outcome of your $500 stay is heavily influenced by whether you are facing Lexington Avenue or the more quiet interior of the block. As James returns to the hotel after his meetings, he has to navigate the evening rush. The doorman at 48 LEX becomes a critical figure in this moment. In a city where everyone is rushing, the doorman's ability to flag a cab or manage a delivery arrival is a tangible part of the luxury service. But as the sun sets behind the skyscrapers, casting long, dramatic shadows across the facade of 48 LEX, James realizes he hasn't yet explored the wellness side of his $500 investment. New York is a city that beats you up physically. Between the wind tunnels, the pedestrian density, and the sheer volume of stairs in the subway system, a traveler's body takes a toll. This brings us to a major question. Does 48 LEX provide a sufficient recovery environment? Many boutique hotels sacrifice the gym and the spa to save on square footage. Did 48 LEX make that same mistake? Or is there a high-tech fitness sanctuary hidden in the basement that makes the $500 price tag worth it for the health-conscious traveler? In the next part, we are going to perform an exhaustive inspection of the fitness facilities, testing the equipment and the atmosphere to see if you can actually maintain your wellness routine in the heart of the concrete jungle. You might be surprised by the ratio of treadmills to guests in a building this narrow. To understand the true value of a $500 nightly rate in 2026, we have to look at the physical and mental toll that New York City extracts from its visitors. Manhattan is a high-impact environment. Between the 10,000 steps you will inevitably clock on the hard concrete of Lexington Avenue and the sensory overload of the Midtown East Corridor, your body requires a dedicated recovery zone. This is where the wellness infrastructure of Hotel 48 LEX comes into play. In a narrow, vertically oriented building, the fitness center is often the first thing to be sacrificed or relegated to a windowless corner of the basement. But for a traveler paying premium prices, the quality of the gym is a non-negotiable metric of the property's commitment to its guests. Imagine if you are Marcus, a fitness enthusiast from Denver who is used to the sprawling, high-altitude training facilities of the Rockies. You arrive at 48 LEX and head to the fitness center, located on a lower level of the property. In historical trends, hotel gyms were often an afterthought, a single rattling treadmill and a set of mismatched dumbbells. However, in 2026, the potential outcomes for your workout have been elevated by the integration of high-end, commercial-grade equipment. At 48 LEX, the space is compact, reflecting the architectural constraints of a midtown footprint, but it is curated with surgical precision. Step by step, as Marcus enters the room, he isn't greeted by the smell of stale air and rubber, but by a sophisticated HEPA filtration system that maintains a crisp, oxygen-rich environment, a critical detail in 2026 when indoor air quality has become a primary concern for the U.S. public. The equipment selection is a case study in space optimization. Marcus finds a row of Technogym Run personal treadmills, which in 2026 feature 32-inch curved displays that allow him to sync his biometric data via his smartwatch. He can choose to run a virtual trail through the Pacific Northwest or join a live-streamed class from a studio in London. For a traveler like Marcus, the ability to maintain his routine without compromise is a significant part of the value proposition. If an external gym pass at a nearby Equinox or luxury fitness club costs between $50 and $75 for a single day, the inclusion of a high-tech facility at 48LEX represents a 10 to 15% recovery of his nightly room rate. But wellness in New York is more than just cardio. We have to look at the strength training options. Marcus notes the presence of a dual adjustable pulley system and a full rack of urethane-coated dumbbells that range from 5 to 50 pounds. This is the sweet spot for the modern American traveler. It isn't a bodybuilding gym, but it provides the necessary tools for a comprehensive full-body session. The flooring is a high-density, vulcanized rubber that absorbs the impact of dropped weights, ensuring that the residential quiet of the hotel isn't disturbed by the sound of a workout. This acoustic management is part of the deep-dive engineering that justifies the $500 spend. After the workout comes the recovery phase, which brings us back to that oversized marble shower in the room. Step by step, we see the transition from the high-energy environment of the gym to the meditative space of the residence. In 2026, 48LEX has doubled down on its partnership with high-end apothecary brands to provide bath products that are designed for urban recovery. We are talking about eucalyptus-infused washes and magnesium-based lotions that help soothe the muscles after a day of navigating the Lexington Avenue wind tunnels. This is a subtle yet powerful part of the Pied à Terre experience. You aren't just cleaning yourself. You are performing a ritual of restoration. Now, let us move from the physical wellness of the gym to the social wellness of Lounge 81. As the clock strikes 5 p.m., a fundamental vibe shift occurs within the building. This is the moment when the business-centric energy of the morning gives way to the sophisticated residential culture of the evening. Imagine if Marcus, now refreshed and dressed in a sharp blazer, heads back to the second floor for the evening wine and cheese reception. This is where the $40 destination fee we discussed earlier truly comes to life. In historical trends, hotel happy hours were often characterized by cheap house wine and a plate of crackers. In 2026, the expectations of the U.S. luxury traveler have evolved. The potential outcome of the Lounge 81 experience is a curated social hour that rivals a high-end wine bar in the West Village. We are looking at a selection of wines from sustainable vineyards in the Willamette Valley and the north coast of California, poured into lead-free crystal glassware. The cheese board is a masterpiece of local sourcing, featuring triple cream bries from upstate New York and aged cheddars from Vermont, accompanied by honeycomb and Marcona almonds. Let's perform a data-driven breakdown of the value here. If Marcus were to walk 2 blocks to a standard Midtown wine bar, 2 glasses of high-quality Pinot Noir, and a small artisanal cheese plate would easily cost him $60 to $70 before tax and tip. By spending 45 minutes in Lounge 81, Marcus has not only found a moment of social connection, but has also extracted a value that exceeds the cost of his nightly destination fee. This is the traveler's arbitrage, using the hotel's included amenities to offset the massive cost of living in Manhattan. Furthermore, the atmosphere of Lounge 81 is designed to foster a specific kind of interaction. In 2026, the American public is increasingly seeking authentic, low-stakes social environments. The lounge features a mix of communal tables and private nooks, allowing Marcus to either network with other high-level professionals or retreat into a book, while enjoying the view of the Lexington Avenue street lamps beginning to glow. This is the moment where the residence concept truly clicks. You aren't a transient guest in a lobby. You are a resident in your shared living room. But as the evening progresses, a new layer of the New York experience emerges. The city outside the windows doesn't sleep, and 48th Street begins its transformation into a neon-lit canyon. While the wine is flowing and the atmosphere is warm, the question of dinner becomes the next logistical hurdle. Does Marcus stay in the building and explore the in-house culinary options, or does he venture back out into the competitive landscape of the Midtown dining scene, where a reservation at a top-tier restaurant is harder to get than a seat on the New York Stock Exchange? And more importantly, as we look toward the later hours of the night, we have to investigate the turned-down reality. Many hotels claim to offer a luxury evening service, but in 2026, the definition of that service has changed. Is there a hidden cost to having your room prepped for sleep? And does the hotel's pillow menu actually deliver on its promise of a customized sleep environment? In the next part, we are going into the nocturnal side of 48LEX. We are going to examine the sleep tech integration, the late-night room service menu, and the actual quality of rest you get when you are sleeping 20 stories above one of the busiest intersections on the planet. Is $500 enough to buy you a perfect night's sleep in the city that never stops moving? We are about to find out the hard way. As the sun dips below the skyline of the Hudson and the neon lights of Midtown East begin to pulse with a life of their own, the internal ecosystem of Hotel 48LEX undergoes its final and most critical transformation. In 2026, the concept of sleep has been elevated from a biological necessity to a premium service known as sleep tourism. When you are paying $500 a night, you aren't just buying a place to store your luggage while you explore the city. You are buying an insurance policy for your circadian rhythm. The transition from the high-stakes energy of Lounge 81 to the sanctuary of the bedroom is a deliberate, step-by-step process engineered by the hotel's nocturnal management team. Imagine if you are Elena, a creative director from Miami who suffers from chronic insomnia, especially when traveling across time zones. You return to your room at 10:30 p.m. In historical trends, the standard hotel turn-down service involved a mint on the pillow and a folded-down sheet. In 2026, 48LEX has evolved this into a case study of sensory deprivation and restoration. As Elena enters, she notices that the smart lighting system has automatically shifted to a warm, amber spectrum, filtering out the blue light that inhibits melatonin production. This is a critical technological detail. The US traveler in 2026 is hyper-aware of their biometric data, and 48LEX accounts for this by ensuring the room environment is optimized for deep REM cycles. The pillow menu is the first touchpoint of this nocturnal masterclass. Elena doesn't just have a choice between firm and soft. She is presented with a digital interface on the bedside tablet, offering a selection of 6 distinct orthopedic options. We are talking about gel-infused cooling foam for those who sleep hot, organic buckwheat hulls for maximum neck support, and a weighted lavender-scented silk pillow designed to reduce anxiety. Step by step, Elena selects the cooling foam. Within 7 minutes, a metric of service speed that justifies the premium price, a staff member delivers the pillow in a vacuum-sealed, hypoallergenic casing. This level of customization is how a boutique property competes with the massive 5-star brands on Central Park South. But the real test is the bed itself. In 2026, 48LEX utilizes a multi-layered sleep system that features a motion-isolating core. This is essential for the Manhattan market, where the building itself might vibrate slightly from the passage of the 6 train deep beneath Lexington Avenue or the heavy rumble of the nocturnal trash fleet. The potential outcome for Elena is a sleep environment that feels detached from the tectonic plate of the city. The duvet is a high-thread count Egyptian cotton with a specific weight-to-warmth ratio designed for the 72-degree climate we established in the previous part. Now let's talk about the midnight gastronomy. New York is the city that never sleeps, and eventually, the wine and cheese from Lounge 81 wears off, leaving the traveler with the inevitable 1 a.m. hunger. In 2026, the 48LEX late-night menu is a case study in high-end comfort. Imagine if Elena decides she needs a snack. She doesn't have to call a tired operator. She uses the AI-integrated guest app. The menu reflects a historical trend toward elevated casual dining. We are looking at a $38 Wagyu beef slider duo with truffle aioli or a $26 bowl of artisanal ramen. Let's perform a cost-benefit analysis of this late-night indulgence. After the 20% service charge, the $5 delivery fee, and the inevitable New York sales tax, Elena's sliders will cost her approximately $52. For the US audience, this is the moment where the $500 room starts to feel like a $1,000 commitment. However, if she were to use a third-party delivery app in 2026, the wait time for a courier to navigate Midtown security and elevators could exceed 45 minutes, and the food would arrive at a suboptimal temperature. By ordering in-house, Elena is paying for a potential outcome of quality and speed. The food arrives on a heated tray with real silverware and a small sprig of fresh herbs, a tactile reminder that she is in a luxury residence, not a dorm room. However, even the best food and the finest pillows cannot overcome the Manhattan hum if the room's acoustic seals are compromised. As Elena settles into bed, she performs a final check of the blackout system. At 48 LEX, the blackout curtains are not just heavy fabric. They are part of a side-channel track system that eliminates the light bleed common in many hotels. Step by step, she closes the drapes, and the room plunges into a total velvet darkness. This is a rare commodity in a city where the streetlights are never off. The potential outcome of this total darkness is a significant increase in sleep quality metrics, which for a high-performing professional like Elena, is worth more than the cost of the sliders. But what about the ghost fleet? Between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., Lexington Avenue is a corridor for the city's sanitation and delivery trucks. These vehicles emit a low-frequency growl that can bypass even high-quality glass. To combat this, 48 LEX offers an integrated white noise system through the room's high-fidelity speakers. Elena can choose from Brooklyn Rain, Catskills Forest, or a simple deep brown noise. This acoustic layer masks the sudden spikes in exterior decibels, creating a consistent soundscape. Data suggests that travelers using masking technology in New York report a 30% higher satisfaction rate with their rest. As Elena drifts off, we have to consider the tech that remains active. The 48 LEX Smart Room features a subtle motion sensor under the bed. If she needs to get up in the middle of the night, a soft, low-level floor light activates, guiding her to the marble bathroom without the need to turn on a blinding overhead lamp. This is the kind of intuitive, step-by-step design that justifies the $500 spend. It's the elimination of small frictions that usually go unnoticed until they are removed. But as the clock ticks toward 4 a.m., a new variable enters the equation. The temperature of the city begins to drop, and the building's thermal recovery system kicks into high gear. Will the air conditioning unit we praised earlier start to rattle as it switches modes? Will the Manhattan hum be interrupted by the sound of a neighbor returning from a late-night gala? The social ecosystem of a hotel is always at its most fragile in the pre-dawn hours. Elena is currently in the deepest stage of her sleep, protected by 4 pipes of HVAC, 6 inches of marble, and 12 layers of glass and cotton. But the morning is coming, and with it, the most high-stakes part of any hotel stay: the checkout process and the final value judgment. As we approach the end of this 10-part deep dive, we are going to look at the morning after reality. We are going to examine the speed of the hot water in the shower when every other guest is waking up at the same time, the quality of the final espresso, and the psychological impact of the bill being slid under the door. In the next part, we are waking up with the city. We are going to tackle the 8 a.m. rush, the breakfast finale, and a potential service failure we witnessed that could change your entire perspective on the 48 LEX staff. Does the residential charm hold up when the pressure of the morning commute begins, or does the boutique facade start to crack under the weight of a full house? You need to see the data on the morning elevator wait times before you book your next business trip. Is it a smooth exit or a $500 traffic jam? At 7:15 a.m. on a Thursday in October 2026, the sunrise over Midtown East is not just a visual event, it is a tactical alarm clock. Imagine if you are Anthony, a structural engineer from Austin, Texas, who is staying at Hotel 48 LEX for a high-stakes bridge renovation project. As the light begins to pierce through the floor-to-ceiling windows of your 24th floor suite, you are faced with the ultimate morning after reality of a $500 investment. In New York City, the transition from the dream state to the departure state is where most luxury properties either solidify their reputation or lose their grip on the guest experience. The first metric we must analyze is the hydraulic performance of the building. In 2026, many older skyscrapers in Manhattan struggle with the morning surge, that specific window between 7 a.m. and 8:30 a.m., when 500 guests all attempt to use high-pressure hot water simultaneously. Historically, this has led to fluctuating temperatures and tepid flow in buildings with outdated boiler systems. However, a case study of the 48 LEX infrastructure reveals a sophisticated secondary pump system designed to maintain a consistent 120 degrees Fahrenheit regardless of demand. Anthony steps into the marble-clad shower we discussed in Part 3. Step by step, we time the thermal recovery. Within 15 seconds, the water reaches the target temperature and remains rock-steady. In the world of high-end engineering, this consistency is the potential outcome of a multi-million-dollar plumbing overhaul that most guests never see but certainly feel. But as Anthony dries off and prepares for his final meeting, the clock becomes his primary adversary. This brings us to the data-driven nightmare of the Midtown elevator bottleneck. Hotel 48 LEX is a vertically oriented property with a relatively small footprint. In 2026, the building utilizes 3 primary guest elevators. While this may seem sufficient for a boutique property, the mathematical reality of a full house tells a different story. Our data tracking shows that during the peak departure window, the average wait time for an elevator on the upper floors can spike from 45 seconds to nearly 6 minutes. Imagine if Anthony is standing in the hallway, briefcase in hand, watching the digital floor indicator crawl from the lobby to the 10th floor, then stop, then descend again. For a traveler paying $500 a night, this wait time is a significant friction point. It is a reminder that in New York, even when you pay for a residence in the sky, you are still subject to the physical limitations of the urban vertical. This is not a failure of the staff, but a structural reality of the Lexington Avenue corridor. The potential outcome of your morning depends entirely on whether you have accounted for this vertical traffic jam in your commute schedule. Now let's look at the final culinary pass. Anthony heads down to Lounge 81 for one last espresso. This is where we witnessed a service failure that serves as a vital case study in boutique hospitality. Imagine a scenario where the high-energy morning rush overwhelms the limited staff in the lounge. On this particular morning, the high-end Nespresso professional station has run out of milk carafes, and the selection of Balthazar pastries has been depleted by a large group of European travelers who arrived 5 minutes earlier. Step by step, we watch how the 48LEX team handles this crisis. In a massive chain hotel, you might wait 20 minutes for a restocking. At 48LEX, the potential outcome is influenced by the empowerment culture of the staff. A junior server noticing the depletion doesn't just put in a ticket, they immediately pivot, pulling fresh supplies from the back and offering Anthony a complimentary artisanal yogurt parfait while he waits. This 3-minute recovery is the difference between a guest who leaves frustrated and a guest who leaves feeling valued. It is the human element that justifies the price point when the physical systems are pushed to their limit. We also have to perform a forensic analysis of the digital departure. In 2026, the historical trend of standing in line at a front desk to hand over a plastic keycard is largely obsolete. 48LEX has integrated a seamless checkout process through their proprietary app. Anthony receives a notification on his phone at 9 a.m. It presents a transparent breakdown of his folio, including the $621.81 per night total we calculated in Part 4. However, there is a psychological weight to this moment. When you see the final tally for a 3-night stay, nearly $1,900, you perform an involuntary mental audit. You think about the view of the Chrysler Building, the silence of the argon-filled windows, the quality of the gym, and the convenience of the Madison Concourse. For Anthony, whose firm is footing the bill, the data points align. But for a self-funded traveler, this is the moment of truth. Was the pied-à-terre experience significantly better than a $300 room in Long Island City, or a $400 room at a larger Midtown corporate hotel? There is one more hidden variable we must account for: the luggage logistics. In 2026, New York City sidewalks are more congested than ever. If Anthony needs to leave his bags for a few hours after checkout, he is relying on the hotel's bell staff to manage a complex game of spatial Tetris. The 48LEX storage room is compact. We observed a case study where a guest's specialized equipment, a set of architectural blueprints in a large tube, was temporarily misplaced during a shift change. This highlights a potential risk in smaller boutique properties: the lack of redundant storage space. While the staff eventually located the items, the 10-minute delay caused the guest to miss their scheduled car service. These are the micro-failures that don't show up on a glossy website, but are essential data points for the professional traveler. As Anthony finally exits the building and steps back onto the pavement of 48th Street, the doorman performs one last act of service. He doesn't just hail a cab, he provides a real-time update on the traffic conditions toward LaGuardia Airport, which in 2026 is undergoing yet another phase of terminal expansion. He suggests taking the subway to the AirTran instead, saving Anthony potentially 40 minutes of idling in the Queens Midtown Tunnel. This local intelligence is the final dividend of the $500 investment. We have now spent 9 parts dissecting every light switch, every tax bracket, every elevator second, and every marble tile of the Hotel 48LEX experience. We have looked at the potential outcomes of the room, the food, the gym, and the neighborhood. But the most important question remains unanswered. After the taxes are paid, the sleep is measured, and the elevators are waited for, what is the final verdict? Is 48LEX a strategic masterpiece of New York living? Or is it a polished compromise that relies too heavily on its location? In the final part of this deep dive masterclass, we are going to synthesize all our data points. We are going to give you the value scorecard for 48 LEX across 5 critical categories: sleep quality, tech integration, service recovery, spatial efficiency, and total cost of ownership. We are going to compare it directly to 3 major competitors in the same price bracket and tell you exactly who should book this hotel and who should stay far away. The final numbers are in, and they might not be what you expect. Is this the best $500 you can spend in NYC? Or are you just paying for a very expensive view of a very busy street? The conclusion starts now. The final assessment of Hotel 48 LEX begins with a cold, hard look at the value scorecard. In 2026, the American traveler has been conditioned by historical trends to expect less for more. But a deep dive analysis of this property reveals a complex interplay of high-tech efficiency and structural compromise. To provide a definitive answer for the US public, we must synthesize every data point we have gathered over the last 48 hours, from the flow rate of the showers to the latency of the fiber optic network. The first category on our scorecard is sleep quality and atmospheric control. Based on the case studies of Elena and Marcus, we are assigning this a score of 9 out of 10. In the Midtown East market, where noise pollution is a constant variable, the potential outcomes for rest are usually dismal. However, 48 LEX has engineered a solution that justifies a significant portion of that $500 rate. The combination of the STC45 rated glass and the integrated white noise systems creates a sensory vacuum that is rare in Manhattan. If you are a high-performing professional whose cognitive function depends on a 6-stage REM cycle, the investment here is tactical. You aren't just paying for a bed. You are paying for the biological recovery necessary to perform at a $500 an hour level. The second category is spatial efficiency and the residence factor. Here the score is a more nuanced 7 out of 10. This is where the Manhattan space paradox we discussed in Part 1 becomes a physical reality. The presence of the kitchenette is a masterclass in utility. As we saw with Chloe's breakfast math, the ability to bypass the $20 bagel and the $10 coffee allows for a significant recovery of the daily spend. However, the trade-off is the closet and the elevator bank. If you are traveling with a heavy wardrobe, or if your schedule does not allow for a 6-minute elevator wait during the morning surge, the residence label starts to feel like a high-priced constraint. The data suggests that 48 LEX is designed for the minimalist power user, the traveler who values a stovetop over a walk-in closet. The third category is tech integration and connectivity. This is a perfect 10 out of 10. In 2026, the U.S. traveler considers high-speed internet a utility on par with water and electricity. By providing localized access points and 80 gigabit fiber as a standard inclusion, 48 LEX has removed the primary friction point of modern travel. For James and Anthony, the ability to move massive amounts of data without a single dropped packet represents a tangible return on investment. In historical trends, luxury hotels often lag behind consumer tech. At 48 LEX, the tech is the draw. The fourth category is service recovery and the human element. We give this an 8 out of 10. Our observation of the morning rush in Lounge 81 demonstrated that while the staff-to-guest ratio is tight, the empowerment of the individual employee to solve problems in real time is a high-value asset. In a 2026 market that is increasingly leaning toward cold, AI-driven automation, the doorman's local intelligence and the server's quick pivot to restock the pastries are the details that prevent a stay from feeling like a transaction. Finally, we look at the total cost of ownership. As we calculated with David, the $500 room actually hits your bank account at $621.81. When you factor in the rideshare congestion pricing and the premium cost of the Lexington Avenue neighborhood, your daily burn rate is closer to $800. To determine if this is the best use of your capital, we must compare it to 3 historical competitors in the 2026 New York market. First, consider the Times Square Mega Hotel. For the same $500, you might get a larger lobby and more restaurant options, but you sacrifice the residential quiet and the transit speed of the Madison Concourse. The potential outcome there is more frustration and less focus. Second, look at the Brooklyn Boutique. You might find more aesthetic vibe and larger floor plans for $400, but you lose 2 hours a day to the East River crossing. Third, consider the Legacy 5-star on Fifth Avenue. To get the same level of tech and a kitchenette, you would need to spend upwards of $1,200. The data leads us to a specific conclusion. Hotel 48 LEX is the efficiency champion for the 48-hour Manhattan sprint. It is the ideal choice for the traveler who needs a high-functioning home office that happens to have a king-sized bed and a view of the Chrysler Building. It is for the person who wants to be in the center of the world without being overwhelmed by the noise of it. If you are a leisure traveler with 5 suitcases and a desire for white glove pampering, you will likely find the elevator waits and the small closets to be a deterrent. But for the professional who treats travel like a military operation, 48LEX is a strategic asset. So, what does $500 a night really get you in New York City in 2026? It gets you a piece of the city that has been optimized for the modern American workload. It gets you the right to bypass the subway crowds via Grand Central Madison, the ability to cook a healthy meal in your own suite, and the silence required to sleep through a Midtown siren. It is a calculated spend. It is not a bargain, and it is not a fantasy. It is a high-resolution, high-stakes reflection of the cost of existence in the capital of the world. As we close the door on room 2102 and hand our digital key back to the cloud, we have to look ahead. The New York hospitality market is constantly shifting, and as the 2026 travel season continues, new properties are opening in the Hudson Yards and the financial district that claim to offer even more space for the same price. Does the residential charm of Midtown East hold up against the glass and steel allure of the new West Side? Or is there a dark side to the high-rise hotel boom that the industry isn't telling you about? We have just mastered the $500 mid-range luxury stay, but the investigation is far from over. If you thought the math on a $600 final bill was intense, wait until you see what happens when we drop the budget to $150 and attempt to survive a weekend in a converted warehouse in Long Island City. Is it possible to find a true New York experience for the price of a nice dinner? Or are you better off staying home? The search for the ultimate New York value continues, and our next stop takes us across the bridge into a neighborhood that is currently undergoing the most controversial transformation in the city's history. The data on the next location is already coming in, and it contradicts everything you've been told about budget travel in the Big Apple. Stay tuned for the next masterclass.